Hi fashion lovers, welcome back to Eleganza TV. My name is Eunice. Today I'll be sharing with you all how I cut and sewed my own version for a funnel corset. So this particular corset is inspired by Precious Apparel. So I'll be doing my best to recreate this funnel corset looking very neat and cute like this. So if you want to see how I made my own version, do keep on watching this video till the end so you can know how to make yours too. So if this tutorial is something you want to learn, do well to subscribe to the channel, hit on the notification bell so you can be notified when the sewing tutorial drops, as this is going to be the pattern drafting tutorial. So now let's go ahead to draft the pattern for the funnel corsets. The first thing to do is to draft your pattern for the funnel corset, and this is all the tools that you need to draft your pattern. You need your pattern master, your curve driller, scissors, pen and marker. So then on the top of my pattern paper, I'll go ahead to rule a straight line, which is going to be serving as my starting line. Then from that line, I'll be taking all of my measurements. So I'll go ahead to measure my shoulder to nipple point, then my shoulder to under bust, and then my shoulder to half length. So I'll continue marking the same points all through to the end of the pattern to get a straight line. So after getting the points, I'll be using my straight ruler to connect them together. So guys, after doing that, for my half length, I will go down by 10 inches, or you can mark your waist to hip. So my waist to hip is 9 inches, so I went ahead to measure 9 inches from my half length. So guys, take note that this is not the actual corset length I'm making use of. So the reason why I extended the top length on the pattern to my hip measurement is to ensure a snatched corset length after cutting and taking my darts. So having marked my lines and tagging them, on the starting line, I'll be taking my shoulder measurements divided by 2. So I have 8 inches. I'll go ahead to mark that 8 inches, and then I came down by 1.5 inch for my shoulder slants. And then so on the starting line, I'll be taking my neck width of 3 inches. Then I'll connect from that 3 inches wideness for the neck to meet with the shoulder slants. So next, I'll go ahead to take my arm side length. So from my shoulder slant, I'll be marking my arm side length of 8 inches. So to get that arm side length, you're going to take your bust measurement divided by 6 and then add 1.5 inches. So I got approximately 8 inches. So ensure that you use your exact bust measurement divided by 6 plus 1.5 inch to get this calculation. So the next thing I'll be doing now is to rule a straight line on that arm side length. And then next, I'll go ahead to measure the same half of the shoulder on that chest line, which is the arm side length. Then I'll use my straight ruler to connect that to my shoulder slant upwards. So having done that, you're going to get the midpoint of that arm side length, and then you're going to go in by 0.5 inch on that midpoint. And then on the chest line, I'll be taking my round bust measurements divided by 4. So the 3 points that you see me marking, I'll be using my curved ruler to connect them together. So the next thing I'll be doing now is to mark my neck depth. So I'll measure from the starting line 3.5 inches. Then I'll use my curved ruler to connect that to the neck width to form my neckline. So the next thing I'll be doing now is to take my nipple to nipple measurement and divide it by 2. Then I'll mark that point from my bust point down to the top length. So after doing that, I'll use my straight ruler to connect all the points to form a straight line. And then next, I'll be taking my darts. So on the half length line, I'll go in by 0.75 and come out by 0.75 on both sides of the line like so. Then I'll use my ruler to connect that to my top length, forming a diagonal shape. So after connecting that to your top length, you're also going to be connecting the both dart legs to your bust point line. So having done that, I'll measure what I have on my shoulder and divide it into 2 equal halves. Then I'll mark a point there. Then from that point on the shoulder, I'll slant it over to my bust point like so. So next I'll be taking my round body measurement. I've already gone ahead to mark my bust measurement on the chest line. Then on the half length, I'll be taking my round waist measurement divided by 4. So I have 34 inches as my round waist measurement, and then dividing 34 inches by 4 is going to give me 8.5 inches. But since this is a corset and it has to be snatched, so this is how you calculate your snatching. So my pattern is on fold and the back pattern is also going to be on fold, meaning it is going to be into 4. So if you're taking out 1 inch from your waistline, it means you're taking out a total of 4 inches from your whole waistline. So if you take out 1 inch from your waistline on the front and do the same thing for the back, it means you're taking out 4 inches. Okay. So if I remove 1 inch from my quarter of my waist measurement of 8.5 inch, I'm going to have 7.5 inches. So just go ahead to calculate and reduce your waist measurement by the number of inches that you want to snatch with. So I'll be making use of exactly 7.5. Like I said, I'm snatching away 4 inches from my round waist measurement. So I'll go ahead to mark that 7.5. Then I need to replace the dart of 1.5 inch that I have here. So I'll replace the dart to the side part. Then I'll use my ruler to connect that to my bust point measurements. And then on the top length line, I'll be taking my round hip measurement divided by 4. So for this side part, I'll be using the curved part of my ruler to connect that to my waistline, like so. So the next thing I'll be doing now is to get my bust dart, and my bust dart measurement is going to be 2 inches. So to calculate your bust dart measurement, all you need to do is measure the difference between your half length on the front and the half length on the back. So mine is going to be 2 inches. So I went ahead to measure 2 inches on the side part from my bust point, and then I'll be using my straight ruler to connect that to my nipple point. So having done that, I'll be taking a dart on my underbust line to tighten the round underbust. So what you need to do is measure your round underbust on your body and then you divide it by 4. Then place on your underbust line. Then whatever you have remaining, you're going to split it on your dart. So I have about 1.5 inches left. So I'm going to be taking that 1.5 inches on the dart that I have here. So on the center front, I came out by 0.5 inch. This is because I don't want the darts to be too clustered at the center front. So that's the reason why I'm taking 0.5 inch on the center part. Okay, this is going to be taken after the darts like you see me doing. Then on the side part, I'll be taking the remaining 1 inch. So you're also going to be marking the same thing after your darts that you already have there. So this is going to give your underbust extra tightening. So after getting all of this, I'll be using my curved ruler to connect the both dart leg that I marked to my bust point line. And then after connecting that, I'll also be using my straight ruler to connect the both dart leg to my half length. So I'll just go ahead to make all the important lines visible so you can see them clearly. So guys, before going ahead to do the contouring for the overbust part to get my funnel corset, I want to first of all cut out the pattern. Then having done that, I'll be cutting open the shoulder line, the line I have on the shoulder. I'll cut it open to be close to the bust point line like so. And then after doing that, I want to go ahead to close the side bust dart. So you're going to be closing it like so, just like you see me doing. So you're going to fold your bust dart line like so and then place it on the same line as the bust point line. Okay. And then if you notice on the side part, there's a bit of difference on the measurement. So I'll be using my straight ruler to connect the points properly. So after doing this, you're going to measure what you have on the space from one shoulder line to the other. So I have exactly 3.75 and it differs for different body size. So just go ahead to measure exactly what you have there. And then you're going to divide whatever you've got into 2. So I'll just go ahead to mark what I have on the side part of the shoulder and then I'll mark on the other side as well. So I'll go ahead to explain again so it can be clear. After folding your bust dart, you're going to measure what you have on the space from one shoulder end to the other side, okay? So I have 3.75 and then I divided that into 2. Then what I have, I placed on the shoulder, on both sides of the shoulder, like so. So having done that, you're going to open back your bust dart, and then the shoulder is going to be together like this. And then I'll be connecting from the point I marked on the shoulder down to my bust point line on both sides of the shoulder. So having done that, I'll go ahead to take note of my cleavage line. So from the shoulder line, I came down by 6 inches, and that is how open I want the bustier part to be, okay? So after marking that, you're going to measure what you have from your bust point to that point of the cleavage line. So I have 4.5 inch. Then I'll be marking the same 4.5 inch on the other side of the line. So after doing that, on the middle part of the corset, I'm going to measure how deep I want the neckline to be. So I went ahead to mark 8.5 inches from the starting line. Then I'm going to use my curved ruler to connect from the cleavage line to the neck depth, which is going to form a sweetheart neckline. And then I'll also connect the other side to the armhole like so. So guys, after doing this, we need to replace the darts that we have on the oval bust part. So even if you're not going to be making use of a sleeve, you need to replace the darts that you have on the oval bust part. If not, your armhole is just going to be too small. So what I went ahead to do was to extend my shoulder slant of 1.5 inch to the side. And then I'll measure what I have on one side of the darts on the shoulder. Then I'll bring it over to the side part. Then having done that, on the midpoint of my armhole, I'll also be extending it to the side part, okay? So after extending it, you're also going to be measuring what you have on one side of the dart. So one side of the dart is okay. You don't need to measure what you have on both sides. So I have 1 inch on one side. So I'll go ahead to mark exactly 1 inch. Then after doing that, I'll be connecting from the shoulder to the midpoint of the armhole to meet with the side of the bust measurements. So this is going to be my new armhole. So the next thing I'll go ahead to do now is to close the bust dart on the side. Then I'll use my paper tape to just hold it down. So having done that, I'll measure my nipple to nipple, which is my bust span that I have on the center front. So I have 3.75. Then I'll place 3.75 to the side part from the nipple point as well. Then I'll add 1 inch to it. So I explain again, you're going to measure your nipple to nipple, which is your bust span that you have on the center front. You bring it back to the side part and add 1 inch. So this is because the side part of your bust is more fuller than the center front. So after doing that, now I'll be using my curved ruler to connect that to my underbust line like so. So the way I place my curved ruler, I'll just be connecting from the armhole down to the underbust line. So I'll use my straight ruler to rule the line that I have on the underbust part at the center front. And then for the curved lines that I have, which is my sweetheart neckline, I'll be using my marker to make them visible. So guys, this is how it's going to be. This is a separate bustier for the funnel corset. So I'll just go ahead to rule out the darts, and then I'll get another pattern paper that I'll be tracing these lines that I've already drawn out on. So having done that, I want to go ahead to draw the style line for the funnel corset. So from the bust point line at the center front, I'll come down by 0.5 inch. And then I'll go over to the armhole part. So the midpoint of the armhole, I'll come down by 1 inch. Then on that point, I'll go out by 0.5 inch. So I'll just go ahead to draw another armhole on that point. So this is the way I want the style line for the funnel corset to be. You can go ahead to do whatever you like. You can be creative with your own style. So after drawing the armhole for the funnel corset, I'll be connecting the points that I have on the armhole to meet with the bust points on the center front, and then to meet with the middle part. So I'll be using my curved ruler to just place on the 3 points, then I'll connect. So this is the shape I want my funnel corset to have. Like I said, you can choose to maintain the armhole line that we already have on the pattern. So before I go ahead to cut my pattern, I want to first of all mark my corset length. So I made my corset length to be 25 inches long. Then I'll just go ahead to rule a straight line on that point. So this is going to be my corset length. Then so on the corset length line, I'll be going out by 0.75 inch. And then I'll connect from that point to my half length using my curve driller. So having done that, on the side part of the corset, I'll be going up by 1.5 inches. So this is going to be my style line for the bottom of the corset. Then I'll use my curve driller to just draw the kind of style line I want. So guys, after doing this, I'll be using my marker to make all the lines visible. So guys, like I said before, the bustier part, I'll be using another pattern paper to cut it out. So I'll get a fresh pattern paper to place under it and then trace out the lines. And then after I've gone ahead to cut out the bustier part, I'll be cutting out the funnel corset. So I've gone ahead to place my pattern paper underneath the bustier part. So I'll be using my tracing wheel to draw out the lines. So guys, after tracing out the bustier line, I'll go ahead to use my marker to make it visible so you can see how it's going to look like. So after getting this bustier part, I'll go ahead to label them cup A and cup B and then put in my arrows. And then I'll be cutting out the pattern pieces. So when cutting on your fabric, you can choose to cut that center part on fold, or you can cut with your sewing allowance and join them together. So guys, going back to the front pattern, you can choose to add more boning channels as you want. So if you want to add more boning channels, just go ahead to rule straight lines on where you want your boning to appear on. So all these lines that I've drawn out, you can choose to cut it out and then stitch them together again, or just cut out your original pattern, and then when you're fixing your boning channels, you can place your boning the way you want it to be. Okay, so just watch closely and see the way I cut out the funnel corset pattern. So right here I have the funnel corset pattern and my separate bustier. So this is how it's going to look like after you're done. So now let's go ahead to cut out the back pattern. So I'll be using this pattern paper to cut out the back pattern. I first of all went ahead to rule a straight line, which is serving as my starting line. Then from that line, I will be taking my half length. So my half length for the back is going to be 16 inches, while my half length for the front was 18 inches. So after doing that, I will measure my waist to my hip line of 9 inches, just like I did for the front. So the back pattern is quite easy. The first thing I went ahead to do was to take half of my shoulder. Then I took 1.5 inch for my shoulder slant, just like the front. And then I took 3 inches for the neck width. I also went ahead to connect that to my shoulder slant. And then also from the shoulder slant, I took 8 inches for my arm side length. I already showed you how to calculate for your arm side length. So I'll be rolling a straight line on that point. Then I'll also be marking half of my shoulder on that arm side length, which I'll connect to my shoulder slant as shown. So guys, having labeled the lines, my chest line, my half length, and then my top length, I'll go ahead to take the neck depth for this back pattern. So this is totally optional except you want to add a yoke to your corset. So I made the neck depth of the back to be 1.5 inches. Then I'll be using my curve driller to connect that to the neck width. Then I'll also go ahead to use my curve driller to connect for my armhole curve line. So I took half of the armhole, divided it by 2, came in by half an inch on that point, and then on my chest line I marked quarter of my bust measurement. Then the 3 points that I have on the armhole part, I'll be connecting them together. So having marked my bust measurement, on the waistline I'll also be taking my round waist measurement. So at this point I'll be taking my snatched waist measurement of 7.5 inches, and then I'll be adding 1 inch for that. So if you want your back pattern to be dartless, then you don't need to add any dart allowance. But I want to have a dart on the back pattern, so that's the reason why I added 1 inch. So I'll connect from the bust measurement to the half length, and then on the top length, I'm going to use my curved ruler to connect the half length to the top length like so. So like I said before, this top length is not going to be my actual corset length. It is just a guideline to get the roundness of my corset length. So I brought back the front pattern so as to be able to get the same exact length I use as my corset length on the back, okay? So after doing this, I'll just mark the point for my half length, and then I'll rule a straight line. So before going ahead to mark my darts, I like to first of all get the back opening before taking my darts. So on the chest line, I'll go in by 2 inches. So before going ahead to mark my darts, I'll first of all be taking my back opening. So on the chest line, I went in by 2 inches. I'll just mark that point there. And then on the corset length, I'll be going in by 1 inch. And then I'll use my straight ruler to connect the both points together, and that is going to be serving as my back opening. So having done that, the next step I'll be doing now is to fix my dart. So the reason why I didn't fix the dart before the opening of the back was because I don't want the dart to be too close to this back opening. So you're going to measure what you have on the back part from the side part of your waist to your back opening. Then whatever point you have, you divide it into two, and then just place your straight ruler like so, and then rule a straight line. So after doing that, I will take 0.5 inch on both sides of the line, and then I'll use my ruler to connect that to my chest line like so. And then after doing that, I'll also connect to my top leg line. So this is how the dart is going to be for the back. I've already gone ahead to replace the 1 inch dart already. So the next thing I want to do now is to do the same style line on the corset length. So just like I did for the front, I extended the side part of the corset length by 0.75. Then I'll use my curved ruler to connect to my half length. Then after doing that, I'll be going up by 1.5 inch on the side part, and then I'll use my curved ruler to draw my style line on the hem of the corset. So I'm just going ahead to measure the front side parts to the back to make sure that they are equal from the arm side length to the hem of the corset. So after doing that, I'll use my marker to rule all the important lines I'll be cutting on. And then lastly, I'm going to be doing the neckline for the back. So on the chest line, I came down by 1 inch. Then I'll use my straight ruler to just slant that to my armhole on the side part. So you can choose to do any neck styling for the back. You can make it higher or make it lower. So the next thing I'll be doing now is just to label the patterns, and then I'll be cutting out the back. So guys, this is how the back pattern should look after you're done cutting it. So guys, I went ahead to cut my funnel corset pattern pieces on my fabric. So I'm making use of a corset mesh, and that's what I'll be using for the making of the funnel corset. And I'll use a plain fabric to make the separate bustier. So guys, if you find this particular tutorial helpful, please do well to hit on the like button. Also do well to subscribe if you're yet to subscribe to the channel, and hit on the notification bell so you can be notified when the sewing tutorial drops on the channel. Okay, thank you guys for watching. See you in our next video.